Not everyone can find inspiration outside of four walls, but for some among us, adventure is an essential aspect of life. However, for the majority, exploring the world outside their front door is a basic ambition. The danger of adventure is worth 1,000 days of ease and comfort, as Paulo Coelho once stated. Thus, the issue still stands. Is the risk truly worth it? Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Jess Tinsley, a typical 24-year-old, enjoys taking walks and going on excursions. In August 2019, Jess went hiking in the woods with a few buddies on a Sunday night. The three could not have predicted, even in their wildest fantasies, the course of events that transpired next. Durham, England-based Jess Tinsley, 24, is a mother of a stunning girl named Emmy. Her daughter and partner Kieran have a wonderful connection. Emmy was born while Jess was relatively young, and she was reared alone until Kieran entered their life. He is incredibly caring for them, and Emmy has loved him from the beginning. She could not have hoped for a better guy. There was nothing Jess loved more than her small family. It wasn't always the case, though. Jess's life was very different before Emmy was born. She used to have an insatiable appetite for adventure, being a travel enthusiast who enjoyed doing treks and camping excursions. The trails that wound up the hills were her favorite excursions in the woods. Being a mother causes a woman's priorities to shift, and Jess was no exception. Jess was no longer able to take such carefree travels after meeting Emmy. The last thing on her mind was hiking or climbing because she was parenting her daughter alone. When Jess got to know Kieran, things started to get better. He was the help she had been waiting so long for. It appeared as though everything fell into place as he entered the scene. He never grumbled and took care of the things she would worry about. And Kieran could take Jess on short treks if Emmy matured a little. The Sunday night sky was overcast. Jess was drinking tea in her front yard. She was waiting for Kieran to get home after doing her duties. They had arranged to go for a stroll in the evening with their buddy Dan. She was delighted even if the weather was a little too overcast for her liking. Jess heard Kieran's car arrive into the driveway and her thoughts stopped. Emmy was already a little asleep, so Jess had already contacted the babysitter, meaning the sitter's work would be simple tonight. Dan was already relaxing in the rear of the car when she arrived and took a seat in the front. They hadn't done this in a long, so they were all really eager. They decided to take an evening stroll in the Hampsterley Forest, which was around 15 miles away from their Newton Aycliffe residence. It is the biggest forest in Durham, spanning more than 2,000 acres. Additionally, it is recognized as an area of outstanding natural beauty, a designation that honors conserved areas that are somewhat larger than national parks, but no less significant. Although the three had never been to Hampsterley Forest before, they were not worried because there were plenty of routes for hiking, horseback riding, and cycling that allowed people to explore the area. The pals debated for a while before deciding to draw a 5-mile circle that would return them to their starting point for the trek. The three of them set off on their walk full of enthusiasm. As they walked, their sneakers crushed the fallen leaves that covered the trail. The sun was peeping through the clouds, and Jess was glad she had packed her sweater because of the brisk air. Without a doubt, the trail was gorgeous. Jess was already preparing to come here for another walk. As they meandered through the woodland, time passed. The company eventually discovered they had been walking non-stop and had strayed well beyond their original destination when the sun appeared to be setting. If they wanted to make it back before the sun set, Kieran advised them to up their speed. They had been on their stroll for about 2 hours now, and the length of time it was taking them to complete was beginning to get on their nerves. In addition, there was no phone coverage to monitor the distance due to their isolated position in the woods. They had no clue where they were or where they were going. They were just wandering aimlessly down this route. It was becoming late in the evening, and darkness was encroaching on them. With the exception of the sound of their footsteps resonating on the wet ground, the spotted shade of the trees that had appeared so pleasant minutes earlier had given place to an unnerving quiet. They had to keep moving forward. Giving up was not an option. Fortunately, the three of them came upon a map of the region 1 hour into the hike. The weather was growing worse and it was now totally dark. Dan started looking at the map, trying to figure out where they were and how far they still had to travel. To his dismay, however, what he saw on the map was something quite different. The three had strayed into a 12-mile path after falling off the track. Even worse, they had no idea where they were in relation to the trail. That was the moment Jess was ready to lose it. If they had no idea where they were, how in the world would they ask someone to get them? Given that nightfall had arrived, Kieran realized they needed to devise a strategy swiftly. They needed to phone for assistance, but in these deep woods, they would never be able to get mobile coverage. Finding some sort of clearing where they might perhaps expect to obtain some network on their phones was therefore the most crucial thing to accomplish immediately. The three of them found a clearing in the woods after what felt like hours of searching. The moment they noticed they could get a signal here, the three of them rushed for their phones in relief. How to notify the emergency services of their whereabouts was the question at hand. This was an empty field, and there was no way to find them. Since they didn't expect to be stuck there for the entire night, they decided to phone first and figure out how to get found while they discussed it. Taking her phone, Jess phoned the emergency hotline number, 999. After 2 rings, the operator answered and inquired about the nature of their emergency. Afraid to speak up, Jess shot the lads an apprehensive glance. Kieran nodded to Jess confidently, urging her to say something. Jess began to walk the operator through everything. "Hello, we got lost in the forest. We lost our way while hiking and are now unsure of our location and next steps. It's becoming really gloomy outside and seems like it could rain. Please assist." The phone operator recognized that Jess was unable to provide her current location at this time. They required their specific position in order to dispatch emergency assistance. In order to follow directions and stay connected to the conversation, she asked Jess whether she had mobile coverage on any other phone except her own. Taking her boyfriend's phone, Jess prepared to follow the operator's directions, but she was caught off guard by what the operator said next. She was urged to download an app by the operator. It took Jess a moment to understand that the operator was dead serious and that this was not some foolish prank. On her phone, she was meant to download an app. Kieran didn't know what was going on at all. On Kieran's phone, Jess was busy downloading an app at the operator's request. Jess abruptly said, "Kicked converged soccer," into the phone. With bewilderment, Dan and Kieran furrowed their brows. What topic is Jess discussing? Why does she speak in code? What's taking place? "So, the rescue team is currently en route to our location," Jess concluded her explanation. The guys were astonished by what they heard. They were all unaware that such an app existed, and only they realized how grateful they were that it did now. The three of them felt hopeful again, hoping that they would get to sleep in their own beds tonight and that Jess and Kieran would get to see Emmy. They had been waiting for the rescue team to arrive for about an hour after speaking with the operator, but yet there had been no indication. It had begun to rain severely, which fulfilled another of their greatest fears. They were now straining to find shade beneath the trees, hungry, exhausted, and freezing. Jess was about to cry uncontrollably, but she knew she had to hold back since aid was on the way. It was 30 minutes later. By now, all three of them were completely soaked. Jess heard a car approaching as she was snuggled up between Dan and Kieran. When she noticed a flashlight, she assumed she was dreaming. Is this taking place? Have they been located? The members of Teesdale and Weirdale's search and mountain rescue team pinpointed the 3 locations with amazing accuracy. They were told to stay where they were until the crew arrived. In the end, the rescue team was able to map the instructions to their position by using the What 3 Words code against their system and sending an SMS to Kieran's phone. The sight of the cars racing to pick them up delighted the three of them. They sprang to their feet and dashed into the open space. Jess uttered every prayer she could to all the gods. She was in disbelief that they were returning home. She eventually allowed herself to cry, but it was happy tears as she thought about Emmy's adorable face. The rescue team commander conveyed that although they were concerned about the weather, they were fortunate to locate them in good time. "We were extremely pleased with the outcome, which was quite successful, and everyone was well, if a little chilly. Given how poor the phone reception is often in the forest, they were fortunate to have one. So how does this program function with such precision that it saved the hikers' lives? Chris Sheldrick was the one who created the app's software. His background in a rural area of England served as the basis for this concept. All of it began with a postcode issue. An region's postcode is used to assign a unique number to the area in order to organize mail and deliveries. Because postcodes span a wide region with many residences, they do not point to a specific property. Chris remembers as a child receiving mail meant for other people or having to stand on the road to wave down delivery vehicles. Sheldrick went on to work for over 10 years in the music business, but the issue remained. He had issues when musicians and vocalists would end up on the wrong side of town instead of the designated spot, or when bands had to rehearse at a specific place for gigs. This started to aggravate Sheldrick a great deal. Sheldrick had some pretty bad days, according to the What 3 Words website. One such day was in Italy, where the band's equipment was unloaded an hour north of Rome instead of an hour south of Rome, and another was a little worse when the keyboard player called him and said, "Chris, don't panic, but we may have sound checked at the wrong wedding." Sheldrick thought of mapping out the precise position using latitude and longitude, but as you may imagine, it was a complete failure. Numbers are hard to remember as it is. The more digits in a number, the more difficult it is to remember. Sheldrick started to come up with suggestions to make this process simpler, even if the concept was maybe a little convoluted. With the assistance of a previous student who was an expert in arithmetic, Sheldrick started to improve his concept in 2013. They started to consider ways to make this 16-digit longitude and latitude value more readable by compressing it. Their goal was to develop a system that would be far more user-friendly and just as accurate as GPS. It was on the back of an envelope that the idea for What 3 Words was eventually developed, following a process of brainstorming and constant idea rejection. Sheldrick covered the globe with a grid of 57 trillion squares, each measuring around 3 meters. Subsequently, a thread of 3 randomly selected phrases was allocated to every square, endowing it with a distinct identity. They needed to use about 40,000 words in various combinations to fill up every square on the globe grid. Sulk held raves, denoting a spot within the White House, is one example of these pairings. The precision of this software is its greatest accomplishment. This application, for example, allows you to wander around the White House. Takes ritual skins leads to the kitchen. Pump expose forcefully leads to the library. It can pinpoint a specific area of the White House library because, of the 57 trillion squares, 6 of them are located there alone. That is how accurate it is. Though it isn't quite the go-to navigation tool just yet, What 3 Words is gaining ground steadily. Postal services in Mongolia utilize the app to carry out deliveries. This software is also used by Lonely Planet to locate geographical attractions. Mercedes-Benz has also integrated this app with its navigation system inside the vehicle. Even though What 3 Words currently employs over 100 people in its London headquarters, also known as filled count soap, referring to the entrance door of the office, the staff members are always striving to enhance and expand this system even more. Their objective is to establish themselves as the best means of location-based communication amongst individuals. The emergency services team thinks What 3 Words is the ideal instrument to help them do their jobs more efficiently. The software will provide them with the exact location, just like it did for Jess and her companions, eliminating any doubt about where they need to go. About 35 emergency agencies in the UK have now registered on the app. What 3 Words has been shown to be useful in the battle against wildfires. The firemen can now arrange their own path in the quickest and most efficient manner since they know exactly where they are, as opposed to beginning from a place outside the forest and attempting to get directed from there. The best thing is that phone service is not required for this app to work. This capability, according to Sheldrick, is especially useful for those who get stuck somewhere without service. But if someone doesn't have reception, how will they notify the emergency services of their whereabouts? Sheldrick knew how to respond to that. Say a group of hikers was up in the mountains and one of them was hurt, he explained. They can locate one another precisely, even when they lack a signal to make a call. They'll be aware of their special set of 3 terms. Then, one of them can go outside to get assistance and return to the exact spot where their injured companion was. A girl who was being kept captive by her abductor was able to send the police her special 3-word request for assistance, which is one of the most severe instances in which this app saved someone's life. With the special 3 words in hand, the cops could now go to the scene considerably more quickly than if they had had to locate her on their own, which would have taken a lot of time. The incredible part is that Sheldrick had no clue this program would wind up saving lives when he developed it. He was only frustrated with addresses and postcodes. The app has been effective in saving a lot of individuals recently, including a guy who fell over a riverbank and a lady who was driving a damaged automobile in the middle of nowhere. Certainly, this software has benefited the globe in ways beyond providing accurate instructions. Jess is really grateful to the app's developer. She claims she will always remember the 3 words that ultimately saved her life. She is incredibly grateful to the app developers and the mountain rescue crew for making it possible for her to see her kid again, which means the world to her. Dan and Kieran, the other hikers, expressed their sincere gratitude to the rescue team and the app developer team. They count themselves among the fortunate ones who managed to get out of such a terrible circumstance. Jess's experience has discouraged her from planning any further trips to Hamsterley Woodland for the time being, but perhaps she will have the bravery once more and finish that woodland route. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.